Did that show end and now it's just Fear the Walking Dead, or are you doing both of those shows right now?
No, I'm doing both, and I'm going back to the 100.
Is that difficult? Is that a grueling schedule?
It is a grueling schedule. In fact, it's quite different. Fear the Walking Dead was very structured, and it's also based more in the real world. There weren't as many kind of stunts, or you're still in like regular clothes, whereas the 100, it's like, here's your warrior get up and here's your weapons and this is a horse that you're going to be riding, and so it's a little bit more
does this get you into the sort of fantasy horror world a little bit more, or is this kind of a job for you? You go and you love playing the part, but then you go home and you have your own interests that aren't necessarily fantasy or horror.
I actually love fantasy. Like, I love Game of Thrones, and I kind of love, and like, I'm a big fan of the fantasy genre. I think it is like when I go to work, it's funny, like if you're on location, it does permeate your lifestyle more than when you're at home, because you're kind of in the same city with the cast and crew, and you hang out more, and you're invested in it more because it becomes your location. But it also it became something I didn't expect it to. On set, it's so much more lively and fun. Like, everyone's having a good time because I guess the context and the actual the treatment of the scripts are so gross and gory and intense. So it's actually kind of a nice balance. So it's not too jarring. But no, I definitely... Horror is not my primary...
Not your primary genre?
Genre, no.
Where
but I do love it. Now I'm on this show. I mean, I love this.
Have you had the chance to kill a walker yet?
Well, I can't tell you that.
Well, I mean, as an actress, as an actress, have you gotten the chance to get a little physical?
Yes.
Is that fun?
Yeah, I love doing stunts. I bruise really easily though, so it looks like I've always been in.
You're pulling makeup artists over all the time. You're like, gotta take care of these.
Yeah, like I there was one thing where I was doing a stunt and I just got bruised all over my legs, and I had the producer come up and be like, "Is everything okay? Like, are you?" And I was like, "No, it just looks really bad, but I'm fine."
What is it like for you with fans of the Fear the Walking Dead? Were you at Comic-Con with it?
Yeah, I did Comic-Con.
What was that like for you?
Well, it was. I mean, it's an amazing event and like really surreal. It was kind of easier for us because no one knew the show and no one knew who we were, and so we did the Hall H panel, and we were between Walking Dead and Game of Thrones, and it was like in the middle, everyone just had to sit and watch us, like forced to stay. And everyone was so lovely and patient and generous with us. But it was nice because we kind of took a back seat and we could just be observant and see how they were responding to what they saw and the material. And so it's a nice position to be in. I've been warned by the Walking Dead cast and many people that next year if we go, it might be a little bit different. But
in what way? What were their warnings?
Well, they were like, you probably won't be able to walk around. So I don't know. I mean, it depends if people like this or not.
You could kind of mingle a little bit and sort of, or at least kind of hide.
Yeah, like, well, we were able to... Normally they shuttle you between each event or each kind of part of your schedule in a car, but we luckily a few times got to walk around just the city, which was awesome, and like see everyone actually dressed up and like see what the event things on the street were, and that was great.
Does it just blow your mind?
It's insane.
I've never been to Comic-Con, but I see pictures and I'm just kind of like, I don't know if my brain could handle that much.
Like, so confusing too. Like, there was I remember we were like on a rooftop somewhere. I was looking down. It was like the stormtroopers were having some kind of protest march against Darth Vader, and I didn't understand like kind of why it was going on. But they had like signs and everything. And I was like, wait, what are you protesting?
I always imagine Comic-Con to be a place where someone introduced themselves to you in a very casual manner, but is dressed utterly ridiculous. You know, like, how you doing? How you doing? I'm Gary. And you're like, Gary, you're dressed like as a big gigantic lizard.
You look like the Hulk right now. Yeah.
Am I supposed to take your question seriously? I'm not sure what to do with you.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of questions, I think we have some questions from the audience. Who has questions? 1 minute. 1 minute. We'll get the microphone to you in just a second.
Hi.
So, since the show is so large and they're very secretive when they're filming, for your character, do they tell you in advance what's going to happen to your character, or do you kind of just find out script to script when they hand it
Specifically, it's much more script to script. I try and weasel out information from our writers because I'm too curious and I really want to know. They give us a general arc, so you do know where you're at least headed, because it does start to inform the pattern of whether your demise is, positive or negative. And so that starts to seep into your subconscious a little bit. But in terms of the specifics, no, they keep it pretty script to script.
Were you surprised at how sort of tight-lipped everybody has to be on set? Because
Yeah.
everyone kind of talks about that, but what's the actual feeling when you're around that?
Well, we have to wear like capes over our costumes and stuff. When we were first filming, they wouldn't let us walk around. And I thought that was so reserved to the Marvel comic books, those movies where it's like Captain America. Of course, you want him to be shielded.
You were wearing jeans and a shirt and
but
a
I was
t-shirt.
wearing jeans and a shirt, and I was like, really? But they totally wanted everyone covered up and. Yeah, and I think especially in Vancouver too, because that's where we were filming a lot of this, they know exactly all the locations, so they would just seek out. And so there's definitely a little bit of censorship. I kept forgetting my cape though, and I got in trouble for that a few times.
What kind of trouble do you get into?
They just you feel bad because you got someone then running around being like, can you just, this was in the car, and you're just, I'm so sorry. I just forgot, I'm wearing jeans.
Some young PA that's just like, please, I don't want to get in trouble again.
A young PA. Oh.
I think we have a question right here. Who's here for our Kim Dickens interview, right?
Hey.
Huge fan. I know that you have a history with music and background with music. Are you planning to continue in that path, and are you going to sing on the show at all?
Sing on the show? No. my musical background is largely, I studied classical percussion for about 10 years, and then and jazz drum kit. So that was my kind of world that I did. And Ruben Blades, who's on the show, he's obviously huge in the music industry. He's a Latin musician. And when he was definitely wanting to sort of get something together, but I was like, Ruben, I'm not that good anymore. I've had 3 years where I haven't done anything. But no, I mean, I definitely want to keep that part of my life alive. But it's more for myself than for everyone else, I think. I'm not that good.
We have another question in the audience right here.
Hi. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the differences between The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. Thank you.
Sure. Well, from my perspective, because I do love The Walking Dead, but what I really love about Fear the Walking Dead is that specifically the location, because The Walking Dead, it has that rural country kind of vibe. It's all in the woods. It's a little more provincial, those plantation style home in the second season. But with this, it's so urban. And I love that it's given us leeway to explore that, the urban decay and the graffiti and that charm, that gritty charm of LA too, where it's the sunsets and the palm trees, but also homeless kind ofness and everything. Pollution. And so it's also, what's great too is The Walking Dead, it's based on comic books, so you don't have as much creative reign. This, we had so much more to do with than cinematically. The director for 1, 2, and 3, Adam Davidson, what he did create was a real atmosphere, I felt, that was so different to the original. I felt you really get that charm and that oozing culture of LA that's not Hollywood. It's East LA, and it's very real, and I love that we can make it a little bit more art house. Does that when I first saw it, I thought, wow, this is a lot more artistic than
it's a lot more dramatic. It's a lot more dramatic rather than sort of action oriented.
Yes, that's the thing.
And the drama is a certain amount of action, but it's not as sort of heavy on the gore. If you will.
Yeah, and I think The Walking Dead, it had such specific pinpoints in it, the way that Rick Grimes is a sheriff and he's got an action hero persona already crafted, and you've got. I remember at Comic-Con someone asked about specific costume detailing that become so connected to the character, like Michonne's machetes or Daryl's hat or something like that. It was very specific, whereas we're trying to still kind of craft those and find them naturally, which I kind of love. Yeah.
Absolutely. Next question.
Hi.
Hi.
So you have acted in quite a few sci-fi series and projects. Do you have a particular affinity for sci-fi? And have you, do you have that?
Yeah, no, I love sci-fi. I do love sci-fi and fantasy. They're kind of my things, I think. I didn't expect to be doing so much sci-fi, but it turns out I did. I didn't even expect for the 100 to be so sci-fi, kind of. I mean, post-apocalyptic, definitely. But I also think that whole apocalyptic vibe is so relevant now. Like everything, a lot of films you see now, like Mad Max, Tomorrowland, like there's so many films out at the moment that are just relevant to an apocalyptic genre.
We're all pretty scared.
Yeah, and it's in the zeitgeist.
There's a lot going on.
Exactly, there's so much, and it's often, human created in many ways. And it's like interesting, like if you think about the 50s, the technology was a source of inspiration and excitement. The Jetsons were like, propelling for human thought and engineering, and now it's like, oh, how many ways can we kill ourselves? And which is a little dark, but it is. I mean, it's everywhere. Yeah, was that
it
really,
was so
really
tempting to just wrap it right there and just be like, that's it.
And we're gonna die.
Let's take one more question.
Hi.
So because this is sort of a prequel series and we know where this horrible apocalypse goes, how do you see your character adapting to that, and which character do you think from The Walking Dead she'd most relate to?
I think Maggie is my relatable character, if I had to pick one. I think they get along really well, actually. She'd probably see her as like a big sister vibe, which she would like. In terms of, what was the other part of that question?
Just sort of how your character would react
Oh,
to
yeah.
seeing the minor apocalypse.
That's right.
When the big one.
Yeah, how she would adapt. Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. I feel like she could go, without spoiling anything, I think there are two different paths, potentially. There's like that idea that, she has the most to lose out of everyone because she has those ambitions. She wants to get out of LA, and it's about starting afresh. She's in a really difficult family situation. So for her, it's that hope to then hopelessness. That's a huge drop to make for any human being. And I think with that, you either, whether she rises to the occasion and uses that resilience to then actually make her a very stoic and resilient person, or whether that destroys her. I'm not sure, because they do go script to script, and I mean, I kind of have a hint of where it's going, but
Where's it going?
I can't tell you.
Oh man.
But I mean, yeah, it is interesting. Like, does that, like, or even if that stoicness, if that turns bad instead of good. Because it's not like, I think Travis played by Cliff Curtis, he is the good guy, he always wants to see the best in people, and often that doesn't necessarily work in this world. And so for her, I don't know if it's like, I mean, do you go with the bad and you run with it, or do you try and like be the good guy? I don't know.
I don't know either. I think that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
It's been
you.
a pleasure
Thanks for
talking to
having
you.
me.
Congratulations on the show.
Thanks.